Well, it's a sentence we've heard time and time again over the past 2 decades. Tom Brady is heading back to the Super Bowl. The 43-year-old future Hall of Famer will appear in his league record 10th championship game, and he's done it in his first season with his new team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, after they beat the Green Bay Packers on the road yesterday. The Super Bowl is actually in Tampa, Florida this year, and will mark the first time in NFL history that a team will play the big game on its home turf. Meanwhile, defending champions Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City Chiefs will try to make it 2 Super Bowl wins in a row. It was another playoff comeback for Kansas City, who beat the Buffalo Bills after trailing by 9 points in the first quarter. Just a reminder, you can watch Super Bowl 55 on Sunday, February 7th, right? Well, not here on CBS, but on CBS. But here, we'll talk about it. Let's bring in CBS Sports senior NFL writer Will Brinson for more insight into the matchup. So I'm always one of those people that I show up to the Super Bowl party for the snacks. Not that there will be Super Bowl parties this year. But that being said, I recognize that this is going to be one heck of a matchup. This Super Bowl is also symbolic of a quarterback passing of the torch between Brady and Mahomes. Take us through how these two MVPs led their teams to this moment, and what storylines should we be following over the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, fascinating Sunday on championship weekend. We saw, of course, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers beat the Packers for the second time this season, and really, it's kind of interesting because Tom Brady, comes into the NFC in his first year. He takes out Drew Brees in what may have been Drew Brees' last game, the previous week. And then he takes out Aaron Rodgers, sparking a ton of controversy about whether Rodgers will be with the Packers next year or try to force his way out with the trade. And, I mean, just imagine this guy. He's 43 years old. He shows up to the other conference for the first time. He now has as many NFC championships as Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees in his first year. That's got to be tough to swallow for the guys that he took down. On the flip side, I think what we saw from the Chiefs was because Brady didn't have his best game, but Mahomes did, despite being banged up. And really, the ability of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs to flip the switch. They had sort of been coasting through the second half of the season, had won, I think it was like 6 or 7 straight games by 7 or less points. Didn't feel like they sort of playing with their food is the way that I like to describe it. And then, they get down 9-0 against the Bills and just boom, 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 3 touchdowns in a row in the second quarter. And all of a sudden it's 21-9. The Bills are reeling. They don't know what's going on. They start kicking field goals to chip away at the lead. That's a mistake there. And it just shows you Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes and all those weapons and Andy Reid calling the plays. They can just so casually and so quickly turn things up. I think that's why if you're Tampa, you have to be a little nervous. Remember, they gave up 2 long touchdowns to Tyreek Hill when these two teams played in the regular season.
Yeah, I made a sort of an exasperated face when Anne-Marie was talking about Brady heading back to the Super Bowl. And I do that in jest because, I'm not a Pats fan and I'm not a Tampa Bay fan, but I recognize the awesome ability, the awesome talent that Tom Brady has exhibited over the course of his career, marking him not just as one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game, probably one of the greatest football players to ever play the game. But Anne-Marie also mentioned that it's sort of a passing of the torch. I don't have a dog in this fight, Will, but I got to go with Brady because it's sort of the same thing. I remember back when I was I think I was in high school, Super Bowl 22, Doug Williams going up against John Elway. Doug Williams had been in the league for a long time, wasn't really considered one of the all-time great quarterbacks. He was an awesome player in college, but and you had John Elway, who was already exhibiting signs of greatness back then in 1988, and Doug Williams won that big game. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, experience versus, young talent, but these two teams did meet earlier in the season back in Week 12, and the Chiefs won by 3 points. So what do we make of that?
Yeah, and you're dating yourself there, Vlad. That's okay. Nothing wrong with it.
I always do.
And look, as someone, this will be my 11th Super Bowl with CBS. Tom Brady has been in 6 of them. I'm a little tired of it, buddy. Get out of here, Tom. I don't need to see you back here every week.
And also, it sucks that he looks the same. That drives me even more crazy.
Yeah. This guy's 4 years older than me. Are you kidding me? I look like I'm 15 years older than he is right now. It's all those the avocado ice cream that he's got rolling there in Tampa Bay. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I would look at with this, we look at the game in the regular season, and the Buccaneers did only lose by 3. But people forget in that game, Tyreek Hill, who had a huge game on Sunday, lit them up in the first half. I mean, he had 120, almost 120 receiving yards on touchdowns alone in the first quarter. And the Chiefs jumped out to a huge lead and allowed the Buccaneers to sort of come back in and to score some points late. I'll be curious to see, how does this defense show up for Tampa Bay? Because, Carlton Davis had a pretty nice game. He's going to be tasked with some man coverage against Tyreek Hill. That is not fun to do. And Patrick Mahomes now will have 2 weeks to really rest his foot, get that toe ready. He looked fine on Sunday. I think a lot of people were concerned he might not be very mobile out there. It wasn't an issue. And with 2 more weeks to prepare, certainly it won't be an issue. Now, it's really going to be incumbent, I think, on the Buccaneers defense to try and create a turnover, to try and maybe even get a score, to set up Tom Brady in positive field position, because I don't think you can lean entirely on the offense. They certainly couldn't do it on Sunday. Brady had 3 interceptions in the third quarter alone. And that Green Bay came away with 6 total points on those 3 picks. You just can't do that and expect Tom Brady not to close the thing out. So I like the Chiefs in this spot. I think they've been the best team all year. Tampa's been awesome. Brady and Mahomes 2-2 against each other so far in their careers. But with Andy Reid, I think there's a coaching advantage with the Chiefs, and I think the Chiefs defense really knows how to step up and elevate its game in the playoffs. Tyrann Mathieu, I almost said it like John Breach on our podcast. Tyrann Mathieu is an incredible playmaker who just finds his way to get around the ball and to make things happen. And I think we'll see him do that as well in the Super Bowl.
That's what I was going to ask you about. You mentioned Andy Reid, and I was going to ask you about the coaching and the coaching style and why you thought maybe with Andy Reid there's a little bit of an advantage. Is it because, he sort of has 1 Super Bowl win under his belt and, he's been there before, didn't win, but, he's been there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, look, when you see what Andy Reid's, the way he's coached lately, really in the last year, it's a guy who's had the pressure taken off him to win that first Super Bowl. I mean, like that 4th down play he calls against the Browns. I mean, no hesitation whatsoever to let Chad Henne throw it to try and win the game, and they did just that. I think he's very comfortable with himself. I think he understands that with Patrick Mahomes, he has a lot of freedom and ways that he can operate, and also to be aggressive. I think, now look, I'm taking nothing away from Bruce Arians here. Incredibly aggressive call late on 4th down right before halftime, where they go for it, they pick it up on a pass to Leonard Fournette, and then they go take a shot to Scotty Miller for a touchdown to get a big lead. I just think Andy Reid right now, and I don't mean like in the course of history, but right now I think Andy Reid is the best coach in football. All respect to Bill Belichick, of course. Bruce Arians is a very good coach. One thing I would worry a little bit about if I'm a Tampa Bay fan or a Tampa Bay Bucs backer, against Green Bay, Tampa was really interested, and they've been this way all season long, on running the ball on 1st and 2nd down. And when you have Tom Brady, you have all those weapons. I think it just behooves you to go out there and be aggressive and to pass early on downs so you don't end up in a situation where Brady has to convert these miracle 3rd downs. I mean, he was 6 of 6 for like 140 yards and a touchdown on 3rd down alone in the first half. They were converting 3rd and 13, 3rd and 14, 3rd and 15, 3rd and 9 a couple of times. I mean, that is a little unsustainable, and that would concern me as a Buccaneers fan if that's going to be the game plan coming in against Kansas City.
So, Will, as you know, typically there's a lot of hoopla surrounding the Super Bowl. The host city puts on events for fans. In the week leading up to the big game, players talk with broadcasters at Radio Row. With the coronavirus pandemic, we know things are going to look differently. I think on Friday we reported that the NFL was going to allow 7,500 healthcare professionals, first responders, doctors, nurses, they were being invited to the Super Bowl in addition to some of the other fans. But it was going to be a much smaller footprint than in the past. So what else are you expecting?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly much smaller. This will be the first time since 2008 that I haven't been at a Super Bowl, which is a pretty freaking long time. We're not going down there. CBS Sports is sending, guys who are in Florida. It makes a lot of sense. And frankly, I don't want to be in a hotel for 7 days, walking back and forth to a set. Don't tell my bosses unless they're watching. I'm fine hanging out here and doing the podcast from my office. But I think what you're going to see is a very much smaller footprint. Normally these teams fly in on Sunday before the game or the Monday, like a full week. The Chiefs are going to come in on Saturday before the game. I mean, that's wild. And obviously Tampa, Tom Brady might be at home. I don't even know we don't even know if they'll get a team hotel for this game. We do. I think this is what John Breach told me on the pod last night, but I think there's going to be like 22,000 fans there, which is kind of wild. I mean, that's a ton. That's Florida for you, I guess. Way more than we've seen even in some of the in Buffalo or in Wisconsin or Kansas City. And so there's going to be a lot of fans there, a lot of healthcare workers, and there's going to be a ton of protocols in place leading up to it. I would expect that Radio Row is non-existent. The NFL wants to make sure this game. The NFL has 60 minutes left to play in regulation to get a complete season in. The NFL really wants that to happen. I think they feel good about it happening. But they're going to put a bunch of protocols in, eliminate Radio Row. You'll probably have all these interviews be virtual, as they have been all season long, because what you don't want to do is put this game at risk by expanding the bubble too much. And it probably benefits them that Tampa's the home team, or Tampa is the home team here and gets to play in its home stadium, because that's one less area geographically that you have to worry about. But yeah, I think we're not going to have parties. We're not going to have Radio Row. It's going to be a very business-like, shorter style trip. And, it's unfortunate, but it is the reality of 2021.
So, look, my last question was going to be about, what's your X factor for each team. But I wonder if, COVID-19 is also a bit of an X factor, because as we've seen throughout the whole season, I mean, one person decides they want to go out for a night to celebrate, and they could compromise the whole thing.
Yeah, and that's a great point. We have seen in the past, and won't name any names. I'll let the history speak for itself. But certainly, guys have gone rogue at the Super Bowl. We've seen guys get in trouble, before the game and all of that, and go out, et cetera. You're not going to see that this year, obviously, because the Chiefs are coming back for their second one. This is a mature team that's not going to be, blinded by the spotlight and, oh, we're here for the first time, we got to celebrate. They know what they have to do to win. It's basically the same cast and characters. And then on the flip side, and again, they're just coming down for one night, right, or two nights, right? On the flip side, you have the Buccaneers, who are going to be at home. And so I think that certainly limits what you might be doing. You're not like in New Orleans and feeling it as a team that's about to try and chase a championship. You're at home, and more importantly, the guy who's the face of your team, Tom Brady, he's done this 9 times before, and there is nobody better at week of preparation and keeping his team focused than Tom Brady. He has brought professionalism to Tampa Bay that they lacked for several years. Jason Light, the GM, lured in there. He probably deserves Executive of the Year for doing it, because it's gotten the Bucs in the Super Bowl, and Brady is going to have that same professionalism throughout the next 2 weeks, and certainly will have his team ready. So I think we should probably be fine on that front from a COVID perspective. If you want X factors, I'll say Devin White, the second-year linebacker for the Buccaneers. He probably tasked with trying to cover Travis Kelce. And then I mentioned Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, just such a ball hawk out there on defense for the Chiefs. I think the defenses for these teams will ultimately be the ones who can flip it, even though the offenses are what we look at in terms of the ability to really elevate these squads.
All right. Will Brinson, thank you very much, man. We'll be watching.
All right, guys. Have a great day.
You too.